Good afternoon, Thursday afternoon, June 16th. This is IPNI's Ask the Experts broadcast, regular weekly broadcast. We talk about a topic important to the publishing process every week. Last week we talked about, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about publicity with Skye Wentworth, a veteran book publicist. And today we're going to go back to the basics, and this is something we get a lot when we're out and about at our independent publishing events. We get questions like, I've got a manuscript, where do I start? So we will revisit this topic again and again because there's just so much that we can talk about with it. And our special guest expert today is Lisa Janice Cohen. She's a sci-fi fantasy author.
Yep.
I know there's specific genre type titles, but and primarily she does print and ebooks. Is a well-known and respected author and has had quite a bit of experience doing this. So Lisa, how are you doing today? And are you working on your books?
I'm doing just fine today. I actually am about 2 weeks out from my latest release, so I am working on getting word out to the world with it, as well as working on actually a different project for a while.
That's Dreadnought and Shuttle?
Dreadnought and Shuttle is book 3 of a ongoing space opera series that I'm working on. Yep.
And your website is Lisa?
It's ljcohen.net.
Okay. And Once in a Blue Muse is your...
is my blog.
Blog, yep. Yeah. LJ Cohen. Yeah, I got it. Okay, well, so I'm at a book show, and a nice person, intelligent-looking person walks up to me and says, so you're with Independent Publishers of New England, eh? And I've got a manuscript, and, you know, I'd really like to get this out to the world. Where do I start? I mean, is there anything wrong with starting from that point?
No, there isn't. But there's a lot of impatience when you have a completed manuscript in hand, and I think ideally the time to research the publishing industry is long before you have finished your first manuscript. Knowledge is power, and there are multiple routes to publishing books today that didn't exist really even 5 years ago to this extent. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, do you want a traditional publishing contract with one of the big 5 publishers? Do you want a publishing contract with a small press? Or do you want to independently publish? And all 3 routes really need different skill sets and different knowledge sets.
Have you tried, you self-publish, right?
I do currently independently publish. I set up my own publishing imprint. I did walk the traditional publishing route for some time. I actually had, for about 5 years, I had a literary agent, and we went out on submission. And it was just a mismatch between the kind of books that I wrote and the kind of books that she could sell. And so we parted ways amicably a couple years ago.
Right. And I see that we're being joined by Eddie Vincent, who's one of our members from Maine in Circle Publications. And I'm so glad to have you. If I could suggest I don't know if you can alter the angle of your camera, but if you point it away from a window, then you're not silhouetted. But I don't know if you can do that. If not, it's probably best if you just leave it. But
yeah, the window's right behind me.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't move the whole computer. But yeah, I kind of grew into my publishing operation through. I had a manuscript with a friend, and we published it as a fundraiser for the schools, and then we published it commercially after that. And then I just discovered that I was more interested in publishing other people's work than my own. So I am now building that part of it up. I'm also the president of IPNI, where I get a lot of great information from people like you and Eddie. So yeah, this is. But I've just realized that I'm not a writer type, and but there's a special set of things to consider when you're independently publishing. We try not to say self-publishing because that's a little bit. It's got a slightly negative connotation. That's changing, but not completely yet. So. So what else would you, and Eddie, do you want to just introduce your company and tell us how your route to publishing came to be?
Sure. My route to publishing came to be through working for a large print publisher in Massachusetts, and then I ended up moving to Maine when they sold Thorndike Press Wheeler Publishing to Thorndike Press up in Maine. I was their art director for 4 years, and then they laid me off, and they said, we have no one to do what you do, so will you be independent and work for us? I said, sure. So we publish over 100 book covers a month for them. I have a team of freelancers and a couple of employees. And now we're getting into doing editing, websites, ebooks, book formatting, the whole 9 yards to help independent authors. And we're considering having our own imprint, but I'm working on that, and I need to learn a lot more about that. I've been in publishing and graphic arts my whole career, but not book publishing. The book publishing's been the last 15 years or so, from the art side of it, not from the selling side of it. So I'm trying to teach myself how to sell. I'm going to be talking to Brian Judd later on today. Maybe start one of his organizations, chapter of his organizations up here. There's plenty of publications in Maine, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. Networking is something I need to do better at, which is why I jumped in today.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you have a lot of great experience, and I think we have you on our list of people to pounce on for an experts show. So hopefully we can get that scheduled. We're just putting up our shows for the summer now.
I will be down. I will be there in October.
Cool.
I signed up myself and my wife, but now my wife can't make it. So my right-hand man Devin's going to take her place. So
Sweet.
I'm going to have to switch. I'm going to have to switch that.
If you have trouble editing your registration for the conference, I can do it for you.
All right, because Devin's agreed to come along. So Devin and I will be there in October.
Yeah, cool. I am so glad. Yeah,
I look forward to meeting you there, Ed. I'll be there as well.
Oh, good. Then we'll meet. I went last year, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm thinking that this year will be more fun because I'll have some experience with you, Charlotte, and some of the other members.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's a great. It always just the dynamics are awesome because all these interesting people and these little quirky little types of publications or books and lists and things. But as far as publishing basics, Lisa, and Eddie, jump in with a question if you have one.
Sure.
It seems to me like if you're getting your manuscript, well, maybe a timeline is the most important thing. I don't know. The first thing.
Again, I think you have to go back to which path you want to publish via. And once you make that decision, then you're traveling 3 very different pathways. The pathway I'm most familiar with is that of the author-publisher. I created an imprint so that I could publish my own work. and that's the self-publishing, the indie publishing method. And in terms of that, certainly I can take you through what my timeline is. Other people's timelines, I think, can vary widely, but for me, it's about a 12-month process, which is probably quicker than some and not as quick as others. I start by drafting a novel, which takes me anywhere between 4 and 6 months. My drafting process at this point is pretty well honed, and by the time I finish my first draft, it's actually really draft 2 to 2.5, because I do go back and edit as I go, which a lot of people say is a no-no, but I think whatever process works for you in that way is the right process. I work with a cadre of beta readers who take that finished draft and give me the 10,000-foot view of story. If there's plot holes, if there's places they're bored, if there's things they don't understand. So I'm looking only at the big picture.
How many beta readers do you have working?
I use anywhere between 6 and 10.
Wow.
Less than
and where do you meet these people?
I've been really lucky. Some are avid fans who have emailed me with really specific things they've picked up in books, and I realized, wow, they're really careful readers. I need them as my beta reading team. A few are other writers, but most are not other writers. I actually think writers are terrible beta readers. Well, not always, but
just readers, fans.
Just readers.
And people that have experience in the genre?
Yes. Yes.
What's that, Eddie?
The end user. I mean, it's all about the end user. It's the reader.
And since I'm writing a series, I actually try to find beta readers who have not read the first books, because for me it's important that each story stands well as a standalone. And they're the readers who can tell me if I haven't put enough information or I put too much information from the prior books. So I do a mix.
So you're always working on this beta reader pool. Yeah.
And I found a lot through Google+. It's a really nice community of readers and writers there.
Yeah, it's there's some great large communities of people that are involved in specific topics. So even if you're a nonfiction person, you can find like biology community.
So once the beta reader feedback comes in, I then sort of I look it over, I look for patterns, I incorporate the issues, I make a revision pass, and at that point, once the revision pass is complete, I go to my freelance editor. I have a wonderful freelance editor that I work with. Her name is Karen Conlon. I found her on Google+. We've worked together now on 3 projects, and quite honestly, I can't imagine looking for any other editor ever. She's brutal in all the best ways.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah, so you have her. You've let her know that you've got a book in development.
Yes. In fact, my entire timeline is often based on Karen's editing availability.
Right.
So I knew that she had a spot for April of this year, a year ago, which meant that I started writing a year ago, June, so that I would be done and ready for her to have the manuscript in April.
Wow. And you're pretty, how many books have you done like this?
6.
Huh.
How long's the editing process? You know, once you give it to her, once you give it to your editor, how long?
She usually has it for a month or less.
Wow,
and then,
that's quick.
you know, it helps that I give her an extremely clean manuscript, and it helps that she knows me and my writing quirks, so she knows what to look for. You know, she's very familiar.
Again.
She's very familiar with the genre. Yeah.
The first time out must have been hard, because you're getting to know each other.
Yes, the first time took a little longer. The subsequent books have been much quicker. And then I incorporate her edits, and then I send it back to her, and she does a final proofreading pass, and then it's production time. I need to backtrack because I also contract with artists to do covers because I can't draw my way out of a box. And so the artist who I work with primarily is insanely busy, and so I needed to let him know 8 months ahead that I was going to need a book cover.
Now, did he
So,
do? He did the.
he did all three of my sci-fi books:
Okay.
Derelict, Ithaca Rising,
So
and Dreadnought and Shuttle.
this guy, this one,
Chris Howard, yeah. He's
Chris Howard.
phenomenal. He's
Um,
an incredible artist.
do you work with any? Do you feel like you could work with other artists, or do you want to stick with that?
I have worked with other artists, actually. My fantasy books I worked with an artist who is a art student in Glasgow, of all places, and I licensed art from a woman in Russia for a short story collection. So I'm constantly looking for artists whose work seems to embody the themes and the feel of my work.
Yeah. I found some great people on Google Plus too.
Yeah. Do you ever use places like Shutterstock or things like that? They have pretty good artwork out there.
I don't ever use art like that, only because I like painted art rather than photographs.
Well, no, I'm saying they have painted art.
Oh,
they have exactly what you have on there.
I will have to start looking.
Because I use Shutterstock for all sorts of things, and I know that there are scientific sci-fi type art out there that gives the same. Yeah, it's something to look at. Is my suggestion.
I will add that to my list of places. Mostly, I look through DeviantArt, and I find a lot of wonderful artists there.
Oh, they're great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like something you should dedicate a day a month to, or something like that. It's there's a lot there.
And then once I have the cover and I have an edited manuscript, edited and proofread, then you enter the production phase. And in order to do that, you either need to have the skills of print typography and ebook typography. You either need to have those skills or you need to outsource them. I have those skills. I'm kind of a geek. I hand code all my own ebooks, and I work really hard to make sure that they are utterly backwards compatible for any device, any software, so that they're very clean, very simple ebooks.
You mentioned once that you kind of go for the lowest
common denominator.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are ways of making fancy ebooks, but they will often break on older devices. The older devices aren't able to parse the code that makes the fancier stuff on things like the Kindle Fire or other tablets.
Now you really are gearing your books for the ebook first, right? Or do you?
No, I do them both at the same time.
Both at the same time, okay.
I start with a common manuscript in, I use LibreOffice, which is an open office clone, Word clone. Yeah. And that's where I start, and then I import the text into a program called Sigil, which is a very basic EPUB editor. And then I do all of the print formatting, and I know designers will cringe when I say this. I use LibreOffice to do my print formatting, and it can be done if you have a really solid understanding of styles and how they work.
Yeah, styles are our friends.
Styles are your friends, and I have found that I can make an incredibly lovely-looking print book that is indistinguishable from any book published by the Big Six, the Big Five, by using the tools in LibreOffice and understanding them.
Now, if someone isn't quite so geeky, should they just hire a production person? And for a book like one of yours, what would that cost?
You know, I have no idea. Maybe Ed has more information.
I can tell you what I charge. If I'm doing a book cover, I charge $350 for a book cover that's good for the ebook and a paperback.
That's a very reasonable price.
It is.
For my inside formatting, book formatting, I charge $400, and that is for the ebook and any print that they need, either hardcover or softcover.
Again, a very fair price for the amount of work you're doing.
Well, the idea is not to rip off the writer. You know, it's trying to be fair with what they're doing. I mean, you understand the production side, so it's trying to be fair, but also be able to make money. I
Yes.
figure I can produce the inside text within, I would say, anywhere from 4 to 8 hours between both productions of
Yeah, if you
side
know
of
your
things.
tools well enough, you can just keep,
Well,
doing more, better and better at that, right?
right, and what I do is I do my print version in InDesign,
Hmm.
and then I export it out into, well, I'm just learning this now, but I'm exporting it out into uh, ebook 3
Hmm.
pub
EPUB
format.
3. Yep.
Well, I have to because Ingram Sparks doesn't take 2.
Huh.
So
Mhm.
I'm learning to do it through 3 now. I used to do it in 2. And then for my ebook, then I go into Calibri
Hmm.
and I tweak the code according to what I need because
You
Calibri doesn't take everything over right,
you
you
might
know.
want to look into Sigil instead of Caliber. My experience has been, and I haven't used the most recent Caliber, is their code tends to be a little bloated.
Mhm.
It is, and I try to go and edit it out, and they sometimes add things that shouldn't be added,
Yeah.
and it drives me nuts. The program you're using, I have used before, but I was under the understanding that was being discontinued,
It's a
so I hadn't.
legacy project. It doesn't get a lot of updates. But
Uh-huh.
again, if you're worried about backwards compatibility, I'm not sure that that's so much of an issue. There's
Sure.
another program called Juto that I've also used and does a very similar thing where it sort of
JUTO or
Jutoh.
oh,
Yeah,
Juto. Okay.
I've heard of
Um,
that, but I have not tried it.
right. But for the kind of just, I mean, we can't really speak to everyone individually out there, but you're talking about the more technical types. Um, but otherwise, hire somebody to do this if you're screaming at the thought of figuring out EPUB 3 or something.
Right. If you
And
don't understand the very basics of HTML and
yeah,
CSS, you should not be doing your own ebooks.
Yes,
even
you
with
have to know those
export
two,
from InDesign.
even though you
Even
export
with,
from InDesign.
yes,
Okay.
Yes,
no
because
matter
nothing comes over right.
exactly. There is no automatic formatting that is
Uh-huh.
clean and will pass muster with all of your
Right.
ebooks
So when
or
you say
ebook
that this
readers.
coding is bloated, how does that manifest when you're using a program like
So you
Sigil?
get things like a weird mix of smart quotes and not smart
Oh,
quotes.
yes, yes, yes.
And
I have
the
not found that
e-readers,
problem.
oh, I have in some, and the e-readers will not parse one and they will parse the other, so you'll get a
Mm-hmm.
nonsense code. Um, Sometimes you'll get weird page margins where the margins actually flow off the side of the e-reader and you
Yeah,
lose
I see what
text
you
on either
mean. Yeah.
side.
I've had
But
that
Sometimes,
happen with web program, like
yep,
our IPNI web management program. Oh God, it's just so kludgy. But it's all we've got. We kind of locked into it now. But
if
so,
if you
can I
use
ask a little question about, or not, a big question about publicity? While all this is going on, promotion, marketing, publicity. What's going on at the same time?
I do very little marketing, promotion, publicity.
Ah,
I It's not anything I like to do. It feels incredibly inauthentic to me. What I spend my time doing is just trying to have a very professional social media presence where I engage with people. And I often talk about other things. I talk about my pottery. I talk about books, other people's books that I have loved. Um, I link to all sorts of things about publishing. And every once in a while, I'll talk about my books that are coming out.
yeah, that's kind of the approach I've heard recommended for authors and independent publishers on social media. Just and it just kind of like in life in general, you know, just talk about what's authentic, what makes you happy, what.
And I've gotten the best social media lift from other people talking about my work.
Yeah, yeah.
Word of mouth.
Well, I bought your book, so I am going to read it. I got it on Kindle, I think, and I'm really excited because I haven't read sci-fi for a long time. And and I love the cover. I love it so much. It looks exciting.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched this movie, Serenity. Do you watch a lot of...
Firefly, yes.
Yes, yes.
How can you not know Firefly?
I don't know. I'm like, I have cultural deficiencies, and one of them is, you know, like just massive blanks in
That's
my...
a great show.
My really, really short elevator pitch for this series is Firefly meets Lost in Space.
Oh, yes. And you go to conferences too, right? You're always going to... And what do you get from... Like, do you talk about your books there? Do you do presentations about them?
It depends on the conference. On the con, it's actually conventions, not conferences. So I go to specific sci-fi, fantasy, spec fic conventions, and there's a bunch in New England. We're very, very lucky. We have 2 major ones, actually 3 major ones in the Boston area every year. We've got Aresia in January. We have Boscone in February, and we have ReaderCon in July. And I've been really fortunate that I've been on program at 2 of the 3 for the past couple of years, so I get panels and readings and signings.
Mm-hmm.
And I also go as part of Broad Universe, which is a collective of women writing in genre, and through them have a table in the dealer's room to sell books.
Yeah. So if someone that doesn't have your kind of base where you get these invitations, what's a good way to build that up besides just going to them, like going to these sessions and talking to the people, volunteering?
Volunteering is the number one way. Also, most of the cons are looking for people who have ideas about panels, and they will actually actively ask for panel pitches.
Oh, yes.
So if you're interested, you pitch them a panel and you say, my expertise is X, Y, and Z, and I'd be interested in this panel because.
Mm-hmm. We actually tried that this year with IPNI. Mm-hmm. We've asked for, and you'll be speaking, I think,
yes.
We asked for proposals for sessions, and I think, you know, it just helps people engage with the organization a lot more.
Yeah.
And, you know, they feel like they have a stake in it, and it's also like less work for us. You know, we don't have to guess what people are interested in seeing. You know, so we asked for suggestions about what, you know, whether they wanted to give one or if they knew somebody who might want to, or what they would like to see at the conference. So, and that was good. And also the volunteering, you know, we just had a meeting this morning about the New England Independent Booksellers Conference that we'll be exhibiting at, and you know, the coordinators asked me what do we tell people, you know, about why they should volunteer? You know, and they're looking at it from like, how are we going to get people to help? And what it is like volunteering at this exhibit through IPNI gives you backdoor contacts with all the people who set it up and come in, the publishers who exhibit. You know, it's just like this whole kind of complex network of stuff that you have access to as a volunteer. So I totally agree with that approach.
And so much of being an author publisher is understanding professionalism and having a real high sense of professionalism in all your dealings on social media, in real life, with people who ask about your work. I've seen so many writers, not just indie writers, but traditionally published writers, crash and burn on social media and say things that are inflammatory or trash talking other parts of the industry. And it's a small world. It really is.
Yeah, it It so is. I agree.
And you
Yeah.
don't ever want to be known as that author. No
Right.
one's going to want to work with you.
Right. It's easy to, it's hard to build up that, and it's so easy to destroy it.
Yes.
Anything else? We are running out of time. I can't believe we've already gone through 30 minutes. But we're going to have to run this like every month, because I think we've just scratched the surface of, how to get started in the kind of basic elements of getting independent publishing operation going. But I think one thing I'd like to mention is don't sell yourself short. Get a professional company, that imprint, publishing company. Call yourself a publisher, because you are.
Yeah.
And you'll be taken more seriously, and you'll even have in your mind a more professional mindset.
And I
So,
think it's worth having one of these talks on that different mindset of being an author versus being a publisher, and when you have to switch hats and how that's different.
let's do that next month.
Yeah, because what I found when I'm dealing with independent authors that are trying to self-publish is they don't understand the business side
Right.
so much. They just want to write and get it produced.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them all the time, start their own imprint. But what I've also found as of recently, even though you have your own imprint, you're not always taken seriously from the book buyers and things like that. So I think that's a whole another issue that could be addressed.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think about IPNI as a kind of an agent for our members, and because we've done some more getting out there. We went to New England Mobile Book Fair, and they said, it would be nice to have an IPNI as a regional group. It'd be nice to have an IPNI shelf, and I think there's a role we can fill there in kind of helping get entree to booksellers for our members. So we're going to work on that, and any ideas you guys have would be great. But I just wanted to point out some of the events we have coming up, and let's see, we've got Eddie's. That's such a beautiful image. Wow. But isn't that awesome? We have, let's see, I'm trying to find, yes, okay. We on our homepage, we try and maintain a pretty good list of upcoming events, and then we have an events where the ones that we exhibit at, you can register for. But we have Ask the Experts every week, and then these are past ones in June. You can always go back to our experts shows and review the watch them and ask questions of the experts that we have. I'm sure Lisa would be happy to within her ability. We got a Bookstock coming up that you can still register for that the end of July, and that's kind of the start of the fall season of book exhibits. September, we're about to open registration for the New England Independent Booksellers, which is the association for bookstores and others, and a lot of agents and distributors come to that. We got 2 of our board members are coordinating that, and it's going to be a really nice production this year. I think we've had some tough years where we were in transition, and now we got a pretty good crew. Boston Book Festival is October 15th, and that's going to be run by 2 seasoned professional author publishers. Joyce does other people's books, and Amy she publishes her own. October 16th to the 18th, we have our New England Library Association conference, and librarians actually really love IPNI. I mean, we have a good relationship with the people who run this conference, and they just love, interesting regional books. So that's a great one to be at. for book discovery, getting into libraries. And then the conference, October 21st to 22nd, and we have really great plans. We have up here our keynotes are David Godine, who's an amazing publisher here in Boston area. Tim Brooks is head of the Champlain Publishing Initiative at Champlain College, and he and Mong Yu, who they work on a project called the Endangered Alphabets, and it's just a really, they both spoke at a couple of years ago at our conference, and a great storytelling project that Mong is introducing in his native Bangladesh.
Sorry about the dogs barking.
That's okay. The dog is tolerable. And then we have our keynote speaker, also Angela Bull, who's the head of Independent Book Publishers Association. She's just a terrific speaker and knows a lot about metadata and book codes. She worked with BISAC for a long time. So, whenever I have a really, what do I do with my categories, I try and get a hold of Angela or someone, look through some of the resources that she's given us. So that's just a start, and you can go to our events page for guidelines on the curation of some of those events, and we're introducing curation this year so that we'll have a kind of elevate the quality of the books that are exhibited, and enhance the reputation of the organization as well as its members individually. And if your book is not accepted at that for one of the exhibits, you will we have access to mentoring and resources through IPNI, so not to worry. Anything else you guys want to add before we sign off?
No, thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Yeah, Eddie, I'm really glad that you joined us, and really anytime you want to come on the experts, or if you have a specific topic that you want to talk about, we'd be happy to have you here. So.
Okay. Well, I can email you.
Good. Okay. This is Charlotte Pierce signing off, and we'll see you next week. We are still developing our topic for next week, but I think it'll be something fascinating. All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.